So Chris, do you want to do the intro for today's video?
I'll do the intro. I reckon I'll be good at that.
I know you've been wanting to do it for ages and I've been hogging it on myself.
So I've been dropping some subtle hints.
I know, so go on then Chris, take it away.
Okay. Welcome back to another video. It's Friday and you know what that means.
It's time for Top Fuel Teachers. Not so funny now, is it, eh? So what should we do for today's video, Chris?
How about we do the day-to-day life of the Academy?
You mean the normal day-to-day cars?
Yeah, not the project cars today, but the other cars that we haven't shown you yet.
Let's do it. So let's take a look at the day-to-day cars at the Academy that the students learn the basics on.
So here we are then at the Nissan Micra. Nice little granny mobile, as I call it. The students have other names for it. They're not a big fan of the Micra, I'm not too sure why. On this then, they will learn the basics of removing the spark plugs. I choose this one for spark plugs for the simple reason they are buried deep beneath that. As we move on, we'll see a Mini later, you'll see how easily accessible they are. That's not an enjoyable lesson for me. I like them to get involved, understand that you need a variation of tools on different cars to remove spark plugs. Other jobs on this then, they've been removing the cooling system. They've had the radiator out, which does involve removing this bar. They've also had the thermostat out, which again, under this big air intake system here. So they're really starting to learn the variations of jobs that you have to do just to do one simple task. A thermostat is an easy job, getting to it may not be. So that's cooling systems, ignition systems they've been learning on here. We also carry out safe battery removal, always negative first when removing. This I drill into them day in, day out to make sure that we don't have any little excitement during the day. Here we are at the Toyota Yaris then. On this we have also been doing the cooling system. We do it on a variation of vehicles so they can understand that not every car is the same. Differences on this then, the top hoses are a lot more accessible, the bottom hoses are a lot more accessible. However, the clips are not. They are not your standard Jubilee clip, they are a little squeezed together clip, which I do enjoy watching the students struggle with. As you can see then, if you zoom on in, spark plugs are a lot more accessible on this. So we do carry out spark plug change on this, but as you can see, from that to the Micra, two different jobs, they'll have it done a lot quicker on this. We also carry out how to measure the resistance of a coil pack, as that is part of their qualification. I like to do it on this one because, as you can see, accessibility. Moving round to the side then, other car tasks we carry out on the cars are brake changes. On this one and the Micra, they have drums at the back. So that gives you a different element of, well, I can do brake pads, that's easy. Okay, let's see how you get on with changing the shoes and drums. As you can see, we have had one student forget to put the retaining clip on, hence why it's now precariously balanced on the valve. When he comes back in, he will be refitting that. I did have to laugh as he told me he was confident he had finished, and I just pointed to a little spring lying on the floor. So as I said then, we do drum brakes. I know these are fading out, but it is all part of a day-to-day life in a garage. You will need to know this because these cars still roll into a garage. Moving on to the Mini then, again another easily accessible spark plug change on this, however we did have to get a specialist socket. On this one they have had the entire front end off. Bumpers, crash bars, the works. We have removed the air conditioning system. We did ensure that the air conditioning system was completely drained of the R134 alpha gas before we proceeded with that task. So that, like I said, they had to strip it down. We removed the air condenser and all the pipe work. So this is now running as a non-aircon variation car. They're now building it back up. They've still got a little bit more to do to build it all in, but we're getting there. As you can see, the battery was removed for this task for safety. On this car then, moving around to the side, disc brakes front and rear. So once they tell me they can easily do brakes, right, let's do this one. Oh, hang on, this hasn't got drums at the back. No, this one's got discs. This car I like to use on the student's first ever lesson, safe jacking, wheel removal. I always do that on this car because, as you will be able to see, the side skirts have been removed and I can easily identify to the students a safe jacking point and a safe axle stand point. It's a great car to demonstrate what we do every day in a garage. The reason we do wheel removal is because as a mechanic, you will do it day in, day out. I do explain that to the students. Sometimes we say, right, what I want you to do, go jack up the Micra, take the wheels off, let's do a brake service. Oh, but I've already done that. But if you want to be a mechanic, mate, you've got to do it day in, day out. And 99% of the time, they go for it and they're like, okay, cool, let's do this. Sometimes we do have to explain, it's not all fun and games, it's not always a project car. Sometimes you've got to do the hard work.
So you've removed the complete air conditioning system?
Everything except for the air compressor pump. We've left that in as we don't have a shorter belt. So we've kept the pump on and the original drive belt. However, the rest of it has been removed. So over here then, we have a stand engine. This one is from a Mitsubishi. Once the students have started to master the basics, we bring them over here and we bring them on the practice engines. What we ask them to do on this is a careful disassembly and reassembly. And that's not just the external parts, that is also piston removal, rod removal, crankshaft. We get them to strip them down completely, lay them out in a nice orderly fashion. We then explain what each component does in the engine, and then we ask them to rebuild it. Once we're happy and confident they can do that, unsupervised to a point, we will then move them on to engines like this. This is my own personal mini engine. This will be going in my project at home, and the students have stripped this down for me. I've had absolute faith in them after this. I said, right, this engine I would like you to strip down too. And do you know what? I think they've done a great job.
Is there much difference between the two engines, Chris?
Huge amounts of difference. So the big one being weight. As that stands now, half an engine still weighs more than that. This is an aluminium block. This is absolute cast iron. Also, if you notice, this is just standing by itself. It's standing on its gearbox. This is the classic Mini. At the time, this was a bit groundbreaking with the gearbox being below the engine. This enabled them to make such a small car and drop in, this being a 1.3 engine, in a tiny little engine bay. So over in the corner then, we have what we'd like to call the tyre bay. Here, the students will learn safe tyre removal using all the tools that you'd find in your regular garage. And we make sure that we go through it first in talking, and then I explain and show practically. Then one by one, I will stand here and guide them through it. Once I'm happy they can do it, I will then ask them to go again, and I'll step back, let them do it by themselves. Occasionally you will have one stand there, look at me and go, please help, because they forget, at which point we step in, we re-explain, and they nail it every time. Once we've done safe tyre changing, we then move over to wheel balancing, where they learn that we need to balance all wheels, front and rear these days, to stop high-speed wheel wobbles. We go through the whole process again, just talking through, then a step-by-step stage of doing it, and then we step back and we watch them change the balancing. We will ask them to go to another car, get another wheel and fit one. So they then have to enter all the details themselves, and we can ensure that we know they can balance a wheel properly. Because again, when you get to a garage as an apprentice, this will be one of the first jobs you will learn to do. Tyres and wheel balancing. It will become your bread and butter as a mechanic.
So here we've got our 1.6 Focus, very kindly donated to us by Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. We've been doing lots of work on it, every aspect of the qualification we've been doing on this. Brakes, suspension, spark plugs, which is a little bit of a sore point, but it happens. So we were going, because the spark plugs on this are quite easy to do, they're just in by plug leads on the top, pull the plug leads off and undo the spark plugs. I always say to the students, be very careful when you're undoing the spark plugs because you can crack them. Unfortunately, accidents happen. It happens in all mainstream garages, and we had two of the spark plugs actually break, which is what happens. Now, what happened then was a bit of ceramic off the spark plug went down inside the bores. Didn't know about it until we started it up, and it made some rather awful noises. So that left us with a bit of a poorly engine. Made the decision, do we have a look at the engine, or do we just not bother with it and carry on with the other aspects of the car? We thought, no, we'll do the engine. So this is our students, took the engine apart, took the cylinder head off, exhaust off, inlet manifold off, cylinder head off. Did that to look down into the bores to see if we could get all the bits of ceramic out. Now this is a double overhead cam engine, so it's got a cam belt on it, a timing belt on it, and it needed to be timed up. It's not one of the easiest ones to time up. It is if you've done it lots, but this is our students we're talking about that are still at school. So they've done it. We timed it up because we've got a special tool to help it. We took the head off. We got all the bits out, and we've got new head gasket set for it, and we've put it back on. Now, like I say, these students come from schools because they struggle at school. And to do this job is a massive job. They can do it on one of our stand engines, but that's all right. You just take the head off, put it back on, it's never going to run again. This, I will show you how good our students are and how well they learn. This is the engine now. The camera will make it sound worse, but that engine has been apart by our students and put back together, and it starts and runs. Now, every student, and you all know who you are, that has worked on this engine doing this job, you should be very, very proud of yourselves, because me and Chris, we're proud of you, because that is no little job that you have done there, and you have done amazing. So, the reason we decided to fix this engine was we had an idea out the blue. Now, as you know, our Max Power Fiesta over there, that doesn't run. It's got a good engine in it, but the wiring loom unfortunately has been butchered. So to try and get hold of a wiring loom from it could give us some problems. There's two different looms for the engine that's in it, which is a Puma engine. There's a digital loom and an analog loom. We've got bits of both. We could make a loom up, but it would take a long time, and our students haven't quite got to that stage of wiring yet. So what we're going to do is, what we plan to do is a similar thing to what we've done with Project D. We plan to remove the engine from this, remove the wiring loom from this, and then put it in our Max Power Fiesta. That is to get that little car running and driving, which will be a massive step forward for it. In time, like I've said in the other videos, we might do another engine swap for it. We might put a Mark 6 2 litre from an ST150 in it, or a Mark 7 1.6 turbo from the ST180 in it. Never rule these things out, because our students are amazing. What they do here is awesome work. So never rule engine swap out for that for bigger, but at the moment what we're looking at doing is stripping this car down and transplanting the engine and wiring loom into our Fiesta. So thanks for watching this video. It's a little bit different to our normal ones, we know. Next week we'll be back with another project car update. Might be Project D, might be the track car, might be Paul's Escort. Who knows? We don't, that's for sure. But next week will be another project car update. So it's goodbye from Chris, see ya, and it's goodbye from me. Stay tuned, we'll see you next week.